nice little
Bless you.
Thank you.
and I've got a picture and I just once it's boiled.
How's everybody doing? I need my clapper. If you hear me, clap twice.
Oh, you got
If you hear me, clap 3 times. All right. See, I can learn. How's everybody doing? Good. Next time I'm gonna mix everybody up so that everybody can sit next to new folks. We all creatures of habit. Right. So any questions? So we can start off there before we get going into today. Any questions from last session or logistics, communication issues? Nothing? Wow, all right. Well, today we're going to talk about our own personal time management and then how that can translate into organizational time management, as well as develop some guidelines for fundraising using our social styles. I think, understanding how we communicate and how other folks communicate and how to best merge those so we can get the best results that we're looking for. And then we're going to introduce the Pitch Fest, which is something you guys are going to do throughout the next sessions, so that it will kind of end on our last session where each of you guys can get up and give us your pitch. And so we're going to cultivate that over the next few weeks. And then we have a wonderful guest speaker from SOS Children's Villages. And then we'll outline the next component of our fundraising strategic plan. And I know we have some sponsoring organizations in here that are working with our students, and the students are actually developing this plan for the organization. But for the rest of you guys, it's just an outline and a platform for reference. So as you move forward in your initiatives within your organization, you can have the tools that you need in order to develop these plans in the future. And then also Sal will take us through kind of a live case study so you can see how, the outline that we're giving you actually translates to an organization. We're going to use the poll system again, so everybody take a minute and register. So you'll just text Megan Topham 377 to 22333. Let me know when you're done so I don't want to speed past the instructions here. So those coming in, just go ahead and register on your cell phone. You'll text Megan Topham 377 to 22333. And this will, as we go through the class, we'll have a few conversations and a few polls that we'll go through, and it'll let us, kind of see where the class is as a whole. We good? Okay. Right. Time management. Hey. Oh, I need to go back.
Megan. What's the last name?
I know.
I was like, you wasn't go again.
Right. So in this busy world we're in, time management becomes, and I think we all have our workarounds and our cheats, but just trying to understand kind of some basic best practices on how to manage our time effectively and efficiently to get the best results that we're looking for. Cultivating a time-positive attitude. We'll develop a plan to get organized, personally and organizationally. learn how to prioritize and really the impact of that, and discover the influence and power of organization systems and processes. So sound familiar? You know, working evenings to catch up on stuff, you didn't get done during the day, running late to appointments, complaining that there isn't enough time, waiting until the last minute to finish things, missing meetings or appointments altogether. You know, good time management requires a shift of focus from activities to results. I think a lot of times we just figure out how to get more done versus less efficient and more productive things done. So they've kind of organized things into these queen peas of disorganization. So we have the procrastinators, people pleasers, and those are the ones that are going to be coming in just a few minutes. People pleasers and perfectionists. So procrastinators, you know, do we leave tasks to the last minute? You know, we kind of then rush at the end and you know, or overwhelm ourselves just to finish it up. And then the people pleasers, you know, we don't know how to say that magic word no. We just say yes, yes, yes to everybody and everything. And then we end up falling short some way because we can't accomplish all of those things. And then perfectionists, you just take more time than it's needed to get it done. Sometimes you just have to hit send on that email. It's not, you're never in your mind going to have it completely the way you want it, but sometimes you just got to get it done and move on to the next thing. So let's get our cell phones out and text me which queen pea you think you are.
Of the above. Like a trouble.
It doesn't work on mine, your post?
Yeah, it's not working on that.
It's not working. Let me activate it. Too many. There we go.
It's multiple choice or single choice.
There we go.
There we go.
Procrastinators can't make up their mind.
I
They don't want to admit it out loud.
They're going to wait to see how everybody else answers first.
You haven't opened the pool on the text.
Do what?
It says it's not open.
Are you guys able to?
Yes, I was.
Refresh your browser. Refresh your browser.
Refresh it. Yeah. It keeps telling me the same.
It does.
I'll do it on.
Then you can just be the one that says who you are out loud. You know, I think, you know, it's important for us to recognize ourselves and our strengths and our weaknesses, and really if we're going to identify tools moving forward, you kind of have to understand the baseline of where you're starting off from, right? And being honest with yourself. None of these things are negative things, you know. I'm definitely a procrastinator, but it works for me. I figure out how to get it to work for me, and, you know, it's not necessarily a negative thing. Anybody else have comments about it?
Yeah.
You want to talk about? Yes, ma'am.
Parkinson's law is that's a real thing.
Explain that.
So it's the adage that the amount of time that you have to complete a task,
Uh-huh.
you will stretch your work to fill that time. So if it takes you 2 hours to do something,
Yep.
but you're given 2 weeks to do it, you're going to find the 2 weeks
Yeah.
to stretch it out.
Yeah.
But once you hit that deadline, that 11th hour of that crap,
It's done.
it gets done.
Yeah.
So that's human nature.
No, it's not. Not for everybody.
No?
That drives me crazy. That'll
Really?
stress me out. I'd rather get things
So you're
done
getting
early.
it done in the beginning.
I prefer to at least get as much possible or break it down into chunks because I can't. I will stress out.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm a mixture between the two. I'm a bit of a procrastinator, but also a perfectionist. I take my time because it has to be perfect. So I drag it out so that I'm sure everything, all the I's are dotted properly, and everything's perfect and present.
Has it ever backfired on anybody?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you actually do you change your behavior because of that, or is it just a fluke? You'll just, yeah.
I'm a people pleaser, but not in the classic way that this says. The reason I say yes to things is because there are lots of opportunities that I don't see, and it allows me to kind of think of the possibility.
Yeah, I think, that whole adage of just say yes to everything so that you get an opportunity or you get exposed to different things that you might not have necessarily been exposed to. But I think, it's two different sides of saying you're going to, commit to something and produce something. It's finding that balance between making sure that you're not just keeping a wall up and not exposing yourself to new opportunities, new people, new conversations, but that you can also deliver on whatever it is you're saying. So it is a fine line. So 42% procrastinators, so the people pleasers, 11%, they didn't even want to jump in more to please everybody else. And perfectionists, 47. That's great. So that whole difference that we kind of touched on a little bit between productivity versus time management. With productivity, you're thinking about how much stuff can I get done. It's all these little things, and it's not about the quality of what you're getting done, it's more about the quantity of what you're getting done. So time management, it changes it to get more important stuff done well. So you're identifying what are those key things that need to happen, and then doing a good job and a thorough job getting those things done versus just, I'm just going to blow through this stuff and not worry about the quality or the return of it. And I think we all know a little, we know people that do both, and I think it's a good mix. But overall, in an organization, I think everybody in here would agree that quality over quantity is more impactful. 3 types of interruptions. We got people, paper, emails, environment. So interruptions do happen. It doesn't make it any less frustrating. So like with the people, donors, obviously donors are the most important. They're the priority. Leaders and board members, will you miss another deadline or meeting? If not, what do they need? What do they ask? Co-workers and volunteers who just, need direction, need insight. Is it time sensitive? Can it wait? And then family and friends, balancing work and life. Setting reasonable expectations and boundaries. I don't know if anybody, is good at setting boundaries. I think our boundaries, we can kind of be clear at one point, and then we adjust them and we move them, and then we end up again potentially doing more than we can achieve in a successful way. Paper, the day before email, when we just wrote memos for everything, and then now email, everything is so instantaneous. We have our smartwatches and our phones, and we're completely connected at all times. And then, finding that balance between, how many times have we walked into the office or into the job and went in there with the objective of getting a project done? Like, hey, I'm going to spend these first 2 hours, I'm going to get this knocked out. And then you realize after those 2 hours, all you did is respond to email all morning. So it's like, what can we do to set our goals, but also achieve our goals? It's being okay with letting that email sit there for a minute and get our projects done. We schedule our time. So if we do say we're coming in there for the 2 hours to do this project, whether you have to go hibernate in another room, be away from all your technology, to go in there and commit to, doing that project for the 2 hours. Newsletters and campaign literature, you schedule these kinds of things. Again, you're going to monitor your deadlines and plan accordingly. Reports, first thing in the morning or last thing you do before you leave. This is not something, you know, it's like you want to be fresh in your mind just to get that kind of monotonous stuff done, whether it's in the beginning, and then you can kind of realize that your day is going to be full of distractions and interruptions and all kinds of positive, amazing things, but then you're going to realize, you know, you didn't do those things that you just have to checklist off, you know. And projects, set aside 3 to 5 hours a week to avoid last-minute rushes, and invite others to block their calendars off too. I don't know about you guys, but I want everything blocked on my calendar. If there's a meeting, I want an invite. If there's something I need to do here, I want it to be blocked off so that I don't have to mentally think about it again. It's like, you know, we've all done the brain damage of thinking about all the stuff that we need to do. You don't want to have to think of it again. You know, so if you, the immediate time that you think about it, just write it down, and then it can immediately just go out of your mind until your calendar goes, hey, this is what you need to be doing right now. That's the sound my brain makes when it says, this is what you need to be doing right now. Ding! And then our environment. Phone calls. You know, schedule these times. I mean, you know you're going to have a list of donors you need to call, you know, projects, other things that you need to do. So again, schedule these time blocks within your week so that you're not just sprinkling it in here and there and maybe not doing it as an effective, thorough job that you could be doing. Visual distractions, and especially in those, you know, I mean, I think the workplace has transitioned, you know, not the academic workplace, but general, you know, in the workplace there's a lot of these open settings and everything's really trying to be collaborative and interactive, and sometimes that can be distracting, you know, when you're in an open floor plan and you're sitting here trying to concentrate and really think about maybe doing a grant proposal or something like that, and then you have somebody next to you that's making all their calls, you know, so it's just trying to figure out how to find the place that's suitable for the job you're needing to get done. Right. And this for sure, you know, as I mentioned last week, you know, don't suffer in silence. You know, if there's something that is uncomfortable with where you are, we do not have to be uncomfortable on a daily basis. You know, if there's, you have the power to change your environment. If you're cold, you know, get a heater. You know, that's what I had to do. Right. So here on the making a plan, so these are kinds of things that you're going to, you know, just think about for a minute, and some experiments, maybe if you, some of those things that we've done that maybe we've fallen short on, and you're like, I really want to XYZ. I want to create a task list that's going to, I'm going to make donor calls on Fridays from 8 to 10, or and something like that. So think about maybe 2 to 3 experiments that you want to do in your life right now that you could commit to doing 3 days, a week, and see how this can transition and change your productivity, your satisfaction when you go into the office. Some of those things like conquering clutter. I don't know about you guys, but if I walk into a space and there's just disorganization and there's stuff everywhere, I mean, the things that are all the stuff that's happening here is 10 times worse, because I need to have, you know, you want it to be organized around you so that you can be organized in here. So sometimes maybe it's a value to walk in, straighten up some stuff first, and clean your surroundings in order to focus on the things that you need to get done. You know, so if you work from home, maybe it's I'm going to go into my home office and I'm going to organize this and I'm going to need this space clean. Calendar everything. Some people are like rock stars with this, and folks hate their calendars. So I think, you know, the folks that hate your calendars, I challenge you to use them for 3 days and see how this can affect you. And, you know, your peak zone, I think this is true for just about anything that we do. you know, from personal to work. You know, if I am not inspired or fired up in here, then I am not going to sit here and work on something and beat myself to death to try to get it done if I'm not motivated. So, but if I wait an hour, if I take a nap, or if I do something, then I can wake up refreshed, and then I'm going to blow through something in 30 minutes that I would have beaten myself up over for 2 hours. So I think it's, you know, being nice to ourselves, you know, listening to yourself. What does your body need? What do you need to be productive when you come into the office? Because it's not only going to impact you, it's going to impact everybody that you work with. It's going to impact your communications. You know, it's going to the result of what you're looking for. So again, it's about being more efficient instead of being more productive. And then that lovely thing called personal time. I mean, how many of you guys make this a priority in your life? And isn't that interesting that, you know, you all, I mean, we're all in the nonprofit realm. So you're giving of yourself, of your time, of your energy to these other folks. But in order to do that effectively, you need to be able to give to yourselves too. So maybe those are one of your experiments, that I'm going to spend an hour a week doing something that you love that you haven't given yourself time to do. And then delegate. You know, I think we've all possibly have learned this in our own timelines, but you know, eventually you just realize there's too much on your own plate to get it all done. And you know, the reason that we have a team is to help us. And so you get folks around you that you trust and that can help move your mission forward, and that you can delegate certain things to. You know, at some point you have to be able to relinquish some of the control in order to keep, especially as your organizations are growing, you know, you have to take that leap and let other people, you know, grab the ball and run with it. And then learn to say no. It's not, you know, I mean, there's a polite way to do it, you know, but I think it's important for us to manage that and not realize that the make or break of your organization is if you say yes to everybody and yes to everything. I think it's about being strategic about the things that you say yes to, and then making sure that it makes sense for what your mission is, what your goals are, and what the direction, your strategic direction is in that particular moment. That you might say yes, you know, 6 months down the road. It might not make sense to say yes right now. So on your worksheets, in your packets, let's just take a few minutes, and on the first part, you know, go ahead and write down the queen bee that you were, the procrastinator, the people pleaser. And then at some point, you know, during the day or later tonight, you know, just really think about how that impacts your daily life and ways that you would go about maybe addressing it. And then on the time management, you know, the 3 things. Think about 3 things that you can commit to, that you want to try for 3 days or a week if it's working for you. And as you're writing them down, if anybody wants to share some of yours, please just holler it out. Yes, ma'am.
I only found 2, and I think that's going to be plenty. As far as the personal time would be to just find and commit to a time to work out and get my meals planned, so I'm not eating on the run and making bad choices. I think that affects energy level and overall well-being.
Yeah. Sorry, did everybody hear that?
Sorry.
Was that a yes or no?
No.
No? Okay, so I only picked 2 things. One is for personal time, finding time to work out and plan my meals so I'm not eating on the run. I think for most people that really affects energy level and overall well-being that translates at work. The other is to respect my calendar. I'm good planning, I plan, I color chart, and then someone comes in and asks me for something, I stop and I go do it, and then something else happens and there's a distraction, and so there's no point in having a really nice organized calendar if you're not going to commit to it. And so just respect that calendar and say no as needed, and come back at this time. Those are mine too.
Cool. Thank you. Anybody else?
Does anybody need a pen, just real quick? No? No one?
I write a lot of reports and articles to get fundraising. And what I found is that I'm a perfectionist, and I can rewrite and rewrite and rewrite, and I can send it in, and somebody else can rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. So at some point, you just have to say, okay, this is good enough, and then move on to your next article. So I've learned to balance the perfectionist to say, this is good enough, and move on, so that I can move on to my next project. So there has to be a balance. And that's only because I've now turned 59 and figured out there's only so much time left in my life. And so you do need to find a balance from that perfectionist and balance out what you really want to accomplish in your time. And I think that was a big eye-opener in my life, because you can get your figures absolutely correct, you can get your project laid out, but you only have so much time to accomplish missions.
Hi everyone, good morning. For us as Team Happy is, the whole structure is different because we're 100% volunteer and we don't get salaries. So most of the board is retired. They said like 98%, only 8 p.m. you work. So we're part of the, most of it.
Yeah.
So for me, it's hard to put myself into the three choices you gave me, because I have my own company that I run, that I'm like starting up a new business. I'm a single mom with a son who has autism, and then I have Happy. And never to say that I'm also serving my church. So when you have all this, of course I'm gonna procrastinate towards the things that I need to do for the nonprofit, because for me, it's close to my heart. I co-create, we're creators, we do all this, but then it's, how do I prioritize that?
We're going to talk about
So
prioritizing.
this is, because then when you have so much in your plate, of course I'm going to procrastinate towards some of the things that I need to do, and then I feel guilty because I should have followed up with this better. The foundation could be at this stage or at that stage if I do this, and then you have the guilt mind, because I want to also, I have a little bit of people pleaser, so in those two. So
Yeah.
could you be in between two?
Of course. I think we're all probably...
Because I was like, okay,
We're not just one thing. None of us are just one thing.
because it's like,
Is this thing on?
I think what I want to work on, because I tend to be a people pleaser and an anxiety queller of my own, so instead of dropping what I'm doing just to make the other person happy and get them moving, I think I'm going to try not to calendar more, helping others, and try to stick with what I'm trying to get done sometimes, which I never do. I drop everything for everybody else. There's a knock on my door, I'll help them.
I know. So when her door's shut now,
What's happening?
this is her boundary.
Whatever. An email that you need to see me will work better than knocking on my door going forward from this day.
I tell you, I'm at your door.
But I think it's a personal thing of just quelling your own anxiety and realizing that's stopping you from being productive and paying attention to what your personal issue is.
Anybody else? It's good to share because we're all human. We all have very similar issues, but we all have also creative ways of dealing with them.
right after the new year, one of my friends gave me a 90-day book, and it focuses on skin, self, and soul. And I actually just finished my first week of it.
Yeah. Skin, self,
Sorry, is it?
Yeah.
Yes. So right after the new year, one of my friends gave me a 90-day book, and it focuses on skin, self, and soul. And it's, if your skin isn't great, you don't feel great. And then you have to focus on yourself, so exercising, taking vitamins, cooking things that you really enjoy, and then soul is your purpose in life. And so I just finished my first week, and every night I do 2-minute meditation. It's actually a 6-minute, but I write down 2-minute meditation. I just found a podcast that goes for it, and it so far has been great. It's focusing on positive vibes, and it's going to be my mantra for 2020.
I love that. Any other tools or things like that anybody's found that's been helpful?
I can talk loud. Even when I don't want to. So the time blocks, I really like that, and funny enough, what I've called my time block for getting things done. So yesterday we have a big project on Tuesday. I turned off my Outlook, which is I never do. So I was like, I told my staff, if you really need me to respond to something, you can knock on my door, but my preference is that you don't. Yeah. Because I need to get this done. And I blocked out the time, and I call it get ish done, and then you know what ish really is. So, and it's big and red, and it's right on my calendar, and it's really been nice because I noticed when I had that scheduled all week, as people were looking and using scheduling assistant to find out when I was free, that was booked all day, and I was very tempted to allow, no, it's okay, I can free up to Friday afternoon for you. And I reminded myself, because I made the mistake earlier that week to take it off my calendar, and I said, no, Friday needs to be that, and it's sacred.
Well, and I love that you turned off your Outlook.
Oh, that was hard.
Because it's so hard, and it's, we're also, the projects that we have to do, it's not like it's fun, we're not saving the fun stuff to do, right? So these are the things that we're like, I just really don't want to do it. And so anything else that comes up, I want to do. I'll do anything else, but those things that, you're just kind of, so if an email comes in, I need to get to this right now, and so, I love that. I'm going to actually steal that.
Oh, no. I thought I could talk loud enough, but maybe not. Similarly, it's an app or it's a feature on email where you can pause your inbox. So if you pause your inbox, what it does is you can type in your message, hi, I'm unavailable right now, but I'll be available to respond to your message at X, Y, and Z time. And so you don't get the message until your box is unpaused. And so with the emails coming in, sometimes you gotta pause that box so the ding, or even if you turn it off, you know.
I like that, pause the box.
Yeah, pause the box.
I don't know if you guys do it, but I use bedtime on my phone at home so that it just shuts off any kind of notifications between a certain period of time, so that you're not constantly all night long, ding ding, and then feeling like you need to respond and be proactive on those things. Cool. Off so it doesn't do this. So now I think we had a good segue here about prioritizing, and so I want to volunteer. Anybody? You want to? Since you're like, how do I prioritize?
Can I go to the front?
Yeah, I don't know. We don't have a whole lot of space up here, so I'm going to kind of clear off the table.
Oh my goodness.
They pick your words. So guys, disclaimer.
Okay. So, instead of watching a video on something, I figured it's better for us just to see it in person. And that's...
Yeah. Let's back up.
Okay. All right. So this bowl right here with all these little rocks in it represents all the little things that we do in a day. All those little things, all those interruptions, those emails that, hey, can you grab that? All right, and then we have our big rocks. So you can go ahead and read them off again.
Job, block of personal time, relationships, family, vacation, I like that. Service and community, major project.
So now what I want you to do is figure out how to get all of our primary, our
Organized?
yeah, into this bowl. Without not over the top.
Not over the top.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one I'm putting in is my job. Then, major project. Then, relationship and family. Then, block of personal time. Ooh, dear God. This won't fit. Then will be service in the community and vacation, but I'm over.
You don't get a vacation.
I don't get a vacation, which I haven't gotten in a year and a half.
All right. So now what do you think? So what happens if you put your Oh, look, you got a vacation.
Yeah.
So let's
Do it again.
So now we put our.
If I get a vacation, what do I do?
I think you can have all your big things.
Yes. And then I'll just.
Yep.
All the shenanigans in there. Let me move it. Hold on, guys, because we gotta shake it. Still spray down there. Mom's really good at this.
You will sit.
There you go. Thank you.
So that's the priorities. Figure out what your big rocks are. And those are the things that you commit to and you do first. And then you can put these other little things and they fit. But if you're making all these other little things, like if you are not setting that block of time off and you're allowing, oh, I can accommodate you, come on in, come on in, come on in. And then, your block of time or your big block of priority is just left on the table and not done.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
So, in an old job I had.
Here, let me give you this so everybody.
When I used to practice as a CPA, nobody would ever stop by somebody's office, and you always had to make an appointment. And then when I switched careers and went to nonprofit, nobody in the office understands that. And how do you change the culture of an office so the whole office gets more productive?
Well, I think that having these kinds of maybe team conversations about, because you all are going to be experiencing the same things, and so it's a universal issue. So if you guys can have these conversations openly within your unit and within your organization, then you guys as a team can develop these strategies together so that you're respecting each other's time and space. But you have to be able to communicate. I think so much, we just think that we have to, saying anything is perceived as a negative. And so being able to communicate with each other is paramount, and knowing that you can, everybody wants to help each other generally. And so if you're experiencing like, hey, all these little interruptions are really impacting me and I'm not able to get these projects done. And they're like, huh, me too, me too.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe we say, this is what we're going to do to help each other.
In response to that, I had a similar situation, and what I learned to start saying so that the other person felt good was, I want to be able to give you 100% of my time and attention. How does this time work instead? Because I want to focus on you. And they love that. They're like, oh, yeah, okay. And it helps. And the hardest part, I think, for me is with my supervisors, my superiors, because I think I have to immediately respond, and especially I'm new in my position. So I'm working that out with my boss as well, say, I'd love to really make sure I'm prepared for this conversation. How is an hour from now? So it's at first it's hard for me because there's a little part of me that wants to like respond immediately, but I'm trying to.
Well, you think it's going to give a negative perception of you?
Yeah.
Like, oh, she's not, you know,
but
on
then
it.
if I'm like, I want to be prepared, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So, you know. Yeah.
They're off my workstation. So again, by focusing on the time for prioritizing, you know, the more one-on-one time, I mean, we're all fundraisers, so where do you get your money? You have to cultivate and nurture those relationships with your donors. So, you know, how much time are you guys committing to spending one-on-one with your donors? And by the end of the week, are you like, wow, I didn't get all the face time that I needed, I didn't do the things that I needed to do because I was bogged down doing some of this administrative stuff. And so again, maybe that big rock is that one-on-one time with your donor and committing to that. You know, more efficient event strategies. Focus on those large sponsors. Things that are going to give you a bigger bang for your buck on your events instead of dealing with all of those little mundane, you know, little things. More high quality targeted lists. You know, spending time to really cultivate and get those, identifying who your target audience is and really honing in on that distribution list of your donors, of your potential donors. And, you know, I think there's a few, I wrote it down, a few of those. Any tools that you guys use to pull lists from, or do you pay for any of your distribution lists? Anybody? No? So most of your lists just become from clients, word of mouth,
board member referrals.
Board referrals. And then how are you, what are some of the things that you guys are doing to communicate? And how do you store your communications or realize, you know, what that, you know, your one individual, who all has communicated with them and what those communications are? How are you managing that kind of information and data? Yeah.
We have a CRM system through Blackball called Razor's Edge.
Yeah.
But what you identify is a challenge. What you identify is a challenge for us, and I imagine many organizations have the same challenge, is that you may have a donor who has multiple contacts, and that donor may be a part of the organization. So your CEO may play golf with the marketing manager, but you have a relationship with the CEO. And your events team is calling the volunteer coordinator about an event. It's almost impossible to keep all of those things in one main database. So primarily what we use our CRM, our Razor's Edge for, is to just manage the donations. And we are constantly talking about how to maintain the contact system. As a matter of fact, we met with someone last week who may create a new system for us because it is a challenge, especially when you're in moves management and you set up an appointment with the CEO and you get to the appointment and find out that, oh, Rachel just had a meeting with your events team and we committed $5,000 to your next event.
Right.
When in actuality, you need $10,000 for the academics program over here, and you weren't aware of that. So that is a challenge. The whole CRM is a challenge.
And is it in particular Razor's Edge is not servicing you guys the way?
There's several challenges. Razor's Edge has its limitations because Razor's Edge does not automatically populate data. So if someone attends an event, our accounting department has to manually put that information in. So if I'm going on an appointment with an organization, I have to go to accounting and say, okay, have they done anything in the last 30 days that may not be in Razor's Edge? So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is we have other data systems that have to be dumped into Razor's Edge. So it's not a one-stop shop where there are other, the organization we met with last week, their CRM has a social media component, it has an event component, and it has a peer-to-peer giving component. So a lot of the things that Razor's Edge doesn't have. However, it doesn't have the check, what Razor's checks or whatever that edge is, the component that our accounting department uses.
Right, which is not as important to you guys for sure.
And for us, the problem is a result of growth. You know, 10 years ago, we were a mom and pop operation. We had, what, 20 full-time staff people, and now we have 200 full-time staff people. A much larger budget. It's a much more complex system.
What organization?
Boys and Girls Club of Broward County.
Give us your secrets when you're done.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah. So does anybody else use a CRM? Oh, go ahead. I'll make my way.
So we're Children's Harbor. We have about 80 staff members, and there's only about 3 of us in development, a grants writer and a CEO. And we just switched over from our database that we've had for about 10, 15 years to Network for Good. And Network for Good actually has a lot of the different components for online service, for billing, for everybody to be on the same page. And now it's a matter of continuing to train everyone else in the agency to use that appropriately, outside of just my team. So that's been really efficient for us.
Yeah, I'm going to make my way over to them. Yes.
Yeah, so we use Razor Network for Good as well. Network for Good has a text-to-give platform and a communications platform where you can set up emails. So it's actually, honestly, Razor's Edge is like the Rolls Royce of CRM platforms, but Network for Good is also amazing too. And they're relatively inexpensive as well. But no, they encompass everything. That auto-populates when you donate online. It auto-populates into an account on Network for Good. So I'm a huge advocate for Network for Good. What is the we spend $1,000 a year.
If you have over 5,000 constituents, if you have over 5,000 constituents, then it becomes like 5,500 for the year.
The Razor's Edge is top notch, I must say. Yeah, for bigger organizations it is. We're still smaller, so we use Network for Good. But once you have 200 people in your organization, Razor's Edge is really good.
Did you have something? Oh, you're good.
We're actually using Salesforce, and Salesforce is very reasonably priced for nonprofits. For profit, it's a pretty expensive tool, but it's been pretty good for us. But we are actually looking around because we're looking to see. We have a lot of different programs because we're also open to the public. We're a wildlife sanctuary, botanical garden, so we have a lot of different systems that don't talk to each other. So I'm doing a really big research and looking at Blackbot and Network for Good and all of the others to find out. So I'm wondering if we'll have like a chat board or something where we can further.
And one thing I'm going to show you guys is also, because I think, Canvas is new for everybody a little bit, so just show you a little bit that platform so that, and the inbox function on there, so that you can email anybody in this group.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. And which platform?
Salesforce.
So, that gives you a tool, but what about, did you have something to say?
I was going to ask a question.
Sure. Hi.
My question is, it's still human dependent that you put the information into the system, right?
Yes.
Yes and no.
So, for example, for example, if the human is donating and they put information in, if they limit their information, or if the sales representative goes out and meets with a client and then is obligated to put in all the data, as you mentioned, you know, so you go out and you're at a school, you're at a organization, you put the information in. Now, all those things need to feed into one thing. And then it's not necessarily helpful for the financial department to actually use a good portion of that unless it has specific numbers. So I guess my question boils down to, is there going to be a one fit for every organization?
No.
So the trick is then making sure that the humans are the ones putting the information in that fits the needs of what you're going to. Because again, if I'm at a golf outing and I'm having that conversation, I'm not thinking about putting a bunch of information into a system until I return, until you get to the 19th hole, right? At the same time, a person who's more strategic planning is looking for detailed information, and they're in a conversation that is more limiting. It's not a relationship building, really. It's more impersonal. So one is more personal, the other one's impersonal. So is there really going to be a system that's going to talk to every aspect of our people pleasers, our procrastinators, the whole mentality?
Well, and I think that's a good point, and that's what I was going to bring up next, is that, you know, just one second, and then it's knowing those different audiences and creating tools that help them. Like, for example, you know, the relationship builder, the one that's out there on the green, you know, cultivating that relationship. You need to make it easy. So there's an interface, whether it's an app or a form or something that you just quickly, hey, I just need to capture this quick information so that there's a record. You know, so I've got their name, I've got their email, and their phone number, and their organization. And so it makes it like 2 seconds for you while you're still even talking with them. So, but the folks that are, you know, putting in more detailed information on the back end, you know, they're already there, so they can do what they need to do from that point. But I think it's just creating these different interfaces for each of the different folks that are engaging and connecting that. But it all can funnel into the same place, but it's understanding your tools. I think a lot of times is we're not spending the time, you know, you're relying on one person or one or two people to be the knowledge keepers, you know, and I think we all need to take our ownership of understanding those tools and how they can best work for you. Because it's there, it's just we can be stubborn, we don't want to change, and we think it's going to deflect from the moment, and it's gonna impact your relationship in some way, but really, you know, you can find ways to use it to where it'll actually help.
Hi, so I currently work with Big Brothers and Sisters in Miami, but previously I was at the University of Miami, and I was there for 3 years. The first 6 months of the job was training on Razor's Edge. Like, I lived in that database, and it wasn't 6 months straight, but there were trainings that were offered on a monthly basis, and they were required. I had to complete them by a certain time, and that really helped see all different aspects of the database and just the platform overall, and also how the university used it specifically. And so if I'm adding an event for an alumni event for the School of Communication, which was the area that I worked in development, I could put in the code. Every event was year, month, day, and then there was a previous event, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then an event description would say SOC Homecoming 2019, whatever it is. And it's consistent throughout the entire database. And I think that training, having a system and training the staff is crucial to having a good database. Because if you don't have that information in a consistent way, there's no way to pull lists or pull records or find information that you really need.
Yeah. Well, and then you find yourself in a meeting and then not having valuable information that can kind of make you feel like you look bad because, you know, you want to walk in there already knowing that someone's committed to your organization instead of coming from it as a brand new ask. And then on the other side of that, so we have the database, you know, the structure, but then what do you do with that? You know, so if you're working on honing in and creating these targeted lists, you know, those lists of not just this idea of spray and pray, right? You just you blast everybody out and just hope that you're gonna get something back. You know, I think it's more about connecting that back to our original why, you know, creating those messaging, those workflows, and when you're going to automate things and when you're going to send things out to folks, make sure that it's meaningful and make sure that it is going to a group of folks that want to receive that information. So you're going to get more bang for your buck if you're spending some time really honing in on that distribution list instead of just hopefully I'll get something from these massive emails I'm going to send out. And it's really hard to understand those best practices of designing communications because it's ever changing. You know, even in education, you know, we started off, you know, when we would send recruitment emails out or just information about events and things like that, we gave everything in an email. Like here's, like the email's this long and here's links of everything and you never need to call me. You know, you don't ever have to pick up the phone because I've given you everything in this email. And so, you know, we took out that personal component because maybe in that time that's what people wanted. That is not what people want right now. You know, it's more about more images, more videos, more snippets of information, and they want to connect. So it's really just, you know, having folks that are going to, within your organization that, and again, why we create these networks, because we're not all experts in everything, but really about finding those folks in your circle that have this kind of information and implementing it. So we're all here to help each other, and so if anybody has some unique ideas or, hey, I used this tool to kind of generate this and it was free or whatever, then I think I do want to find a place in Canvas where we can just, you guys can just upload some ideas and things like that so that, you know, you can access it later. So I'll figure that out and send it to you guys.
In the discussion section.
Yeah, and that's a good point. We can put it, because you guys can reply to the discussions and all that within there. That's a good idea. Alright, so prioritizing. So A, priorities are the most pressing ones. B is, you know, they can be done within a week or so. It's not going to make or break me. C is nice to do it sometime. Those things that we have on our list that, you know, if I don't do it, it's not that big of a deal. But eventually, maybe it'll move itself up on the priority list.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
And so what you do with the nice to do it sometimes, it just lingers.
Yeah.
Because then it just honestly starts being like, well, I really should not have, it's not a priority, but it's been there for a while, I'm tired to look at it, and now
Yeah.
I'm feeling bad about it.
But then, you know, and that's the thing, then maybe you're like, okay, I'm tired of feeling bad about it, so I'm going to move it up the list.
But there's more important stuff on top of it, always.
Sometimes I realize that I look at it and go, like, do I even really need this anymore? And then I'm like, no, I don't. So it's like lost
So
its
maybe
purpose.
just delete it, and then it will make, if it's
And
important,
it'll
it's gonna come
manifest
back
itself
eventually.
again. Yeah.
Come back from the dead.
So some of those things, let's talk about that. Like, what are some A priorities? Let me pull up our poll. Some of the things that are just, we have to get done. I like A. Yeah, meeting with donors. You know, I think that there's a theme here You guys are so, you know, that it is about that face time. It's about the relationships with the donors. It's about getting the funding for your organizations. Yeah. Thank goodness these are anonymous, right? All right, what about some B? A second, let me open it up. So, huh? Oh, it'd take a minute because I had to activate it. So it's like A, we have the relationships, and then B, we have the functions. How are we going to nurture those relationships, those events, the things that we need to do? How can we do what we're doing better, more efficiently? What I love about this whole thing is that you can see how similar our landscapes are. You know, that everybody is you know, on the same plane of like, this is what we're focused on. These are A, B, C. There's a different way. C priorities, those things that you don't want to look at anymore, that are still sitting there nagging you. And we'll read these out, and then we'll all give each other permission to delete these priorities. Declutter. So you know, the declutter, maybe that's one of your activities. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Some baggage.
Women. Wow.
Right. Yeah, what about just miserable? Yes, ma'am.
Period. It has me, I'm wondering, yes, they do have a nonprofit that recently launched last year.
Just a second, guys, we have questions. Good show.
I missed
It has me great or, you know, motivated or a little in between, because when I look at the priorities as a new nonprofit, I say to myself, okay, where should my priorities lie?
I'm sorry, I cannot hear. I cannot hear.
Should I focus on building the infrastructure, securing? I talked to Larry, one of my challenges was having the board members in place. And then, or should I worry about bringing in funds? How do you, as a new nonprofit, prioritize or, you know, make things, determine what your needs are, you know, and where do you put most of your energy when you're new? I know that relationships are extremely important, but I need money so that I can, you know.
And you need the infrastructure.
And then you need the infrastructure. So I'm all over the place, and then this just added to the anxiety.
I'm going to give you a little joke answer to that one. As a programs coordinator for STEM, I was asking my my division manager how best to go about accomplishing that same thing, right? You need to begin with the end in mind and then make a list of the daily needs. So what do you want it to look like at the very end? at the same time, you need to write out what do you need to have every single day to make your program work. So for me, being a very deliverable-based person, that seemed like an oxymoron. But I had to, as you said earlier, I had to block out on my calendar. I had never really put information on my calendar and said, hey, leave me alone, I'm doing this. Leave me alone, I'm doing that. So I actually had to utilize my calendar so that all those around me would know that I'm actually doing something. I just didn't put my earbuds in my head, but I actually am doing something from 8 to 10 o'clock, and then I'm doing something from 10 to 1, and then from 1:30 to 5. So those are what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to actually block out, and what you probably need to do is block out, what do you want your event to look like at the very end? Is it going to be a graduation? Is it going to be an event? Or is it going to be an item or something that they're going to create and then now showcase? At the very same time, or excuse me, the next block of time, you're writing out and finding out what do you need to come up with every single day when you go out. What do you need to have in your hands? What do you need to do every single day? And then that middle time, just before you go to lunch, okay, is where you want to find out who are the people that are going to provide me either those small items I need every day or the actual end product for the graduation or the deliverable. Because you're going to hopefully meet them during the lunch block of time.
So in the morning, get ish done. In the afternoon, call the people to get ish done. And in the evening, follow up to make sure the ish is done. Right?
So I want to jump to this really quick because it kind of just segues directly into that, is your living to-do list, which is living. It's constantly, it's a very dynamic entity. It's changing, it's evolving. But really of, designing a master to-do list of everything that you want to accomplish. And I know it's a lot, especially when you're starting off an organization, because, you have your umbrella of infrastructure and all the things within that need to happen. And then each one of those arms has the things underneath that need to happen. And then you have the donor list and the relationships and the things that you need to do there, and so on and so forth. So you have this master list. And then within that list, you break it down with what monthly needs to happen, what weekly needs to happen, what daily needs to happen. Because when you look, just as your anxiety is just building, it's because you have this master list just floating around in your head. But if you're just breaking it down and saying, okay, I'm just going to look at, I funneled it, I sorted it, I'm looking at today's list. And so that's a manageable list to deal with. Ideally, more manageable than looking at the master list. I mean, it can still be, it's overwhelming to start anything, especially when you're from the ground up. But you recognize too that you do have a network of people here to support you, and so don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Ask for, I'm sure everybody here is willing to share whatever collateral materials or insights or best practices that they've dealt with. Yes, ma'am.
I would also suggest, and similarly, surrounding yourself with people who can read the vision and run with it. There are things that you'll be able to maximize and capitalize on your own, but then there'll also be things, and you mentioned it earlier with delegation, that you can just give to them and allow them to run with something that you may not be so strong at. So capitalizing off of the strengths that you do have, making those work for you, and then surrounding yourselves with the areas that you are not so strong in. I would suggest, which is part of the Strength Finders plan.
Yeah.
But for me, when I did start to recognize what I was really good at and honing in on those things, I think my processes and being more efficient and getting things done, it just kind of started to click. And then putting those other individuals around me that could help sharpen areas that I may not have been as strong in, and really refining or even giving them the ball to run with was also very helpful too.
Yep. That's good. Thank you.
Ooh. I know, man. We got you.
Just making sure you're all awake.
Can anybody hear me? Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, has anybody ever read the 12-week yearbook?
Say that again.
Now, the 12-week yearbook. So this is a great tool for anybody that is not as organized and like reading that much, but this book will tell you how to get things done in 12 weeks rather than 1 full year. So for 12 weeks, you'll make a gigantic, like a big goal list of 3 or 5 goals, like something that is realistic, not like 10 million things and you can't accomplish it.
Yeah.
And every single week, you will work towards that goal in 3 months. Like I said, I'm not a bit big on reading, but if you could get the audiobook, and that book will help you and your organization. You can do it in your personal life as well. It is a great tool to have. It's called the 12-week yearbook. It says get more done in 12 weeks than others in 12 months. So if everybody could buy that or borrow it or whatever, it's good for you. Your to-do list is very realistic.
Thank you.
Megan, were you guys intentional about scheduling? Because across the hallway is the National Association of Productivity and Organizing.
Is it really?
They're having a session right now. You might have to invite them over.
We're gonna have to like poach their presentation. But you know, a lot of this is geared towards us personally. Like, what do we do as an individual, not only for ourselves, but to also help our organization. But you know, you can use the same sort of concept for thinking about growth in your organization. You know, obviously the sky's the limit, and when we want to do everything, but when focusing on like what can we do and what do we want to do on the short term, mid-term, and then long term, just take a couple of minutes to think about that and jot it in your worksheet for your organization as a whole. And to the point of the book, you know, you pick those 3 top things, you know, maybe it's just one thing under each thing right now. Yeah. And you're going to see like the organization. You're such a good planner, and you're going to organize out each project. And that's what happened. And I'm going to show a franchise recipe. And I think you should share that so that folks can know what that's like here. Because I will help them. So markers can you will make yourself So there's tons of tools out there to help us individually and like personally organize ourselves, but also as you know we're doing for our short-term, long-term goals as an organization. There's also tools to help. Let me get through this. For your organization, it's the same sort of concept for dividing your project out. And you know, we all again learn a little bit differently. We see things a little bit differently. So these kind of visual formats are helpful, especially when you have so many different projects and phases. Yeah. Yeah, so we'll put there's 2 things. We do have an Excel spreadsheet that is in Canvas as a resource so that you guys can build off that. But Karen, do you want to share a little bit about what you do and your project management?
I do need a microphone.
Yeah.
Because I don't.
So I am an IT project manager. I'm not in the nonprofit organization world. I work for a community bank in South Florida. And as an IT project manager, what we do is we coordinate resources to get projects done on time, on scope, and on budget. And we use Microsoft Project. That's the typical tool that we as project managers use. What Microsoft Project does is it allows you to write the task, every single task that needs to be done for whatever project it is that you're doing. So you get together with the resources and people that are going to be working with you on the project. Everyone has to say what task it is that they're going to be doing, and you start listing everything, and then you ask them, okay, so when are you going to work on this, from what date to what date, because everyone has a lot of things going on. And they tell you, okay, yeah, I can dedicate 6 hours or 20% of my time. There's different ways of doing it. You enter the times, and then at the end, it's going to tell you, so this is going to be completed by such and such date. And it's automatically, like, once you change things, because people might get behind on their tasks, so once you enter the new date, it will automatically change all the dates. You have to put predecessors and stuff, but that's the tool that we typically use. So this is like my bread and butter. It's like what I do for a living. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Before we break, I do want to just bear with me for one more second because I want to go ahead and jump into Canvas really quick and show you guys some of this navigation. And again, if anybody has any other comments or things you want to share about time management, feel free to just let it out. So again, I'm not sure exactly, this is the view I have as the instructor, so I know yours might look a little bit different when you log in as a student, but generally it should be fairly comparable. When you go under modules, this is under Get Started and Course Resources. This is where we'll put any of those kind of Excel spreadsheets. Right here under the strategic plan resources, we have like a worksheet here for the SWOT analysis and the revenue models that we talked about last week, and the program service diagram. And so we'll also put the Gantt chart and things like that to help you, and any other sort of resources that we start picking up with along the way. And again, it's divided out within each session, so each week. And then we'll just put all the printouts that you guys have now are up here. The only thing that will be added after the fact is under the presentation. When you click on that, their PowerPoint is here, but also the live feeds are here. So if you want to go back and check that out, you can. And then I will be opening up each session like the Friday before we meet, so that if you just kind of, hey, I want to get gung-ho and see what we're doing tomorrow, you can log on in here and just see the agenda and things. But mostly everything will be uploaded after class. And then for the students, even though it doesn't reference everybody, but for the students there is just a different module down here with your course information. So that's kind of why it's organized this way. And so everybody, all the nonprofit folks, you don't really need to concern yourself with this section at all. So this will just probably confuse you, but this in the syllabus and things in the deliverables, so you don't have to worry about that. Yes, ma'am.
Can you just explain for those that are organizations that have a student?
Yes.
Where the interaction is?
Yes. So the folks that are the sponsored projects, just so you guys can know, you can come down here and click on this with the organization and student pairings, just so you can see the student that you're paired with. But all communications for everybody. So when you come over here, I believe you can click on people and you can see everybody that is in the class. But if you want to email somebody in particular, over here on the left-hand side, it says inbox.
That's where
you'll email
from he or she.
Yes. This is the interface, but you'll get it in your personal inbox. Whatever email address you gave us, that's where you'll get it. But this is just where you email from. Let's see. So you'll click on inbox. choose the course, and when you compose a message under the to, I don't think you guys will have this many options, but you can choose all students, you can go to student groups, and for those that have sponsored projects, you'll go to your project right here and click on it, and it'll have your email along with the student's email in there. So for example, if I click on Jewish Federation, all of these folks are added to this particular group, and this is the student. So you would just choose all, and then you can draft your email, hit send, and it goes to everybody within that group. Make sense? Yes. Okay. Any questions? All right, coffee break. Yes.
I was going to ask, how do we get onto the website?
Okay.
Yeah, so we got to send you.
I'll send you an invitation that says join this team.
I'll pass your word on to Mark.
So, did you?
Yeah. You remember.
Yes, I'll see him this week. I think we are going to all get together Thursday. So I'll see him Thursday. We have a tourism and transportation day, and next month we have a criminal justice day where we'll spend some card day. So, like touring the correctional facilities, they're all nice packets, shattering them.
No, I haven't. Right. Some of the students are online, and so if you have not enrolled, let me know, and then I'll reach out to them and find out. Yes, one student. Okay, so I'll reach out to Tina and figure out what the issue is and let you know. What's your organization? Well, we are. Okay.
I just, I know someone.
Okay.
Yeah. He's a and I know you guys like help. Right here, don't you? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, the organizations that we partner with, the ones that said that they were not doing history and everything, so not everybody else. And so I know that would be tell the organization that now they're not going to get history. Jamie, you can reach out to Nita and see if she wants to switch. You can email her through here. What's wrong? What organization do you have with you? Why don't you wait? She's planning today.
Yeah, you know when they
They're here.
I'm happy to facilitate an email with Danita to see if she's done anything. I don't want to like take her on something she's already good at. So yeah. Okay. So okay. Oh my God. Top city. Yeah. So if you're not going to go,
Yes, you'll like it. Just do it. I know I can hear Fred right now.
It should never be like, oh, well, you're asking, like, technology seconds. And it kind of like, it's a nice, tricky thing. It is.
That's fine, and then you can also just make it's just, I have to use Canvas outside of the system altogether, and so it's just like, because it limits so you have not in, kind of students, if they were to get in, it would have been like, so, it's not ideal, but you can pretty video. I didn't hear like that. That's what I was thinking.
And it worked out, you know, both knows that everybody knows.
Yes.
So
make these connections for sure.
And I wanted to work with an organization that actually helps me how to get it. And maybe totally in 2 years. It's not.
Reach out to Ken, see what she's doing, and I'm happy to transition any of that. So, I get it. Do you, have you spoken to
I saw it and I was like, oh no.
Okay.
Because I know what it is when I'm like,
okay. I know. I'm gonna, let's just look at more here, if you can reach out to the students, so I think that.
Now they do provide
I love it that much.
They didn't say hi to you, right? Yeah. I was like, what color green?
Any green.
Any green?
Any green. I like mom's yeah. Like your shirt green. Yeah.
How are you?
We'll connect later.
amazing if we look out and the whole scene of that group is bow ties. I would love to look out and one day, like our last session, everybody has a bow tie. Let's do it. You have to get to make it.
Yes.
Emailing her now. Fingers crossed. I do have one here. That would be great. Because I would I just want to say that information.
Exactly. We were texting this week, someone left here. And I was like, you know, I have no clue. I was like, I have no idea what to do. I was like, I just
So online, so the folks that aren't coming to class have to review the presentation, and then the workbook is online, so they'll have to fill out the workbook and submit the workbook, and that's based on the presentation grade. And then everything else is the same curriculum. So we do each week, so every Sunday you'll have that last week's session of the fundraising strategic plan. Then you don't have any other things to do besides the fundraising strategic plan section. Yes. Very good. Yes. I'm teaching in decision sciences, interclassical sciences. So it's at ISA, it's undergraduate for IT.
That's why I started
But this program, not anything else this semester. Summer I'm teaching 2 classes. I think I'm teaching the Sustainable Community Development class, which is it's a prime, but it's fun. I'm not opposed to it. Yeah. I'm not opposed to it. Okay, I'll work with you. Okay. Well, and then fall I teach 4 classes. So I'm going to take my So I have I hear you. I just love this stuff. I hear you. Well, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that the name is
oh my God, I hope so, because I
love that you're here. She needs some help.
I think my boyfriend's son
Things I need to catch up.
actually the schedule has been scheduled in the hour. So if someone
Are you sure they don't? Just because like my or somebody did something similar because my son yeah, I know this was at elementary school, but I knew maybe the idea, but it's super that's something, so like this is something that like our like we would probably like incorporate into one of our classes. We have this really cool class that's called Spirited Girls, and so it's kind of like a mix of like life stages, life coaching, like a lot of like sort of softer everything from that. So I had most of it. I don't want to look at so something like this, I could see them doing projects with that class. I put it into this to the
Hey everybody, let's go ahead and get started. See, now I have the microphone. Sal wants to share something with you guys really quick. Or follow up with our previous conversation about organizing your projects. Excuse me.
Would we be able to see this if we're not
Yes, that's available.
Everything's in campus. You have access to everything.
Sir Larry?
Can we make that bigger? It's really hard to read.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can make it. You can zoom on
Yeah, but it's also so.
You know, you can't zoom. Just zoom screen.
But how do I just zoom
Bottom right.
on? Bottom right?
Plus sign. Control plus. There we go. There we go.
Bingo.
Yay.
Perfect. See? I have a network.
So let me just set it up. Hey.
They're ready.
So, as being both a participant and observer, and given my background, there were some questions about how to prioritize and that sort of stuff. And one of the things that Megan and I were talking about, and also with our work with Bowtie Kids and at Ross, we're going to be having a project plan for the different projects that we're working on. And so the questions about how do you prioritize and how do you this, how do you do that. Just very briefly, yes. When I was, and I've been in most of you guys' shoes, I had to rebuild a lot of organizations during my professional career. One of the reasons why I came here was because I like me time, and me time is 2 hours in the gym in the morning, and then before I come over here. So I prioritize in different ways. But one of the things that I did working in Nassau County, in Nassau County there was a question about how do you prioritize capital budgets. And the reason why I am bringing this up was because we had to establish a whole process for capital budgeting. There was nothing like that in Nassau County when I got there. And so how do you prioritize capital budgets? Which are the priorities? How do you prioritize? We have multiple constituents, meaning the legislators, and also my county executive is now representative of, he was representative. He has his own constituency that he had to deal with, and he had elected officials. So me being the finance director, I had to come up with a way how to do this. So one of the things that I learned from capital budgeting was actually start building a capital project plan. And so how do you prioritize? So when you talk about fundraising, right? There are certain activities that are primary. Contacting the donors, understanding who corporates and individuals. So you have particular phases and particular tasks. You have the people that are going to be responsible, right? The tasks and the activities are important because the task, right, may be identifying corporate sponsors. Then the question is, how do you do that? And how do you prioritize that? And then how do you start it and how do you end it? And who's responsible? Right? And that needs a team, right? You need director of campaigns, you need a chief philanthropist, right? You need someone like Jamie, right? The program. You need all these individuals to help you, right? Because that starts setting out the tasks, the activities, who's responsible, the timeline, right? How do you phase it in? How do you phase it out? And then what is the deliverable? You need all of that stuff in order to have a nice matrix on how to prioritize everything that you're doing in an organization. So the spreadsheet is available for all of you. I will, if you want assistance on how to do it, I'm available. So it doesn't matter if you're, if I'm working with you or not. Just talk to me, because then I'll help you set something out. And how do you prioritize? How do you then set out the task? What activities do you need? And then set out when you start it, when you end it, and then what do you want to accomplish. So that's all available for you. I just wanted to bring that up because there's questions about how do you do that.
It's
so
under that
Get
Get Started section, Resources section, and Canvas module. Yeah. Thank
All right.
you, Sal.
Back to Megan.
Now we get into these styles that we kind of talked about a little bit in the beginning of, what are our strengths? And there's so many things. I'm sure we've all taken a variety of personality tests, Strengths Finder, Strengths Quest, the things to identify, what we're good at. But I think it's important to really understand that when you're in a field that's focused on relationships and understanding how to communicate with a variety of different people and to get the best results and the results that you're looking for. So we're going to dive into one of the SIP models here that they've talked about. So learn about the 4 social styles, identify your social style, and devise tactics for communicating with these different styles. So the 4 social styles, you have the driver. This is taking sensory information and reacting to it. Expressive, it's the intuitive, imagination, abstract thought. Amiable, feeling, they talk about their emotions and reactions to experiences. And then the analytical is the thinking function of organizing and analyzing information in a logical fashion. So some characteristics of each of these styles, analytical can be critical as a negative, a positive, is you're industrious. There's always 2 sides to every coin, and I think, through our lives we've recognized that it's those extremes that get us in trouble. If we can kind of find a balance in between the 2 things, then we can find that positive side of the attribute. So none of these things, again, none of us are just one thing. I think in this particular model, they say that you have a primary and then a secondary. But I think sometimes in any given moment, we might find a little bit of everything in ourselves. But we do know, if we're honest, the kind of area that we might, fall most in. But we're going to take a minute and a second and do a little self-eval and figure out which one we really are.
We're going to take a test.
Yes.
I have to ask.
Yes.
I come fake.
And then the driver, you know, you can be pushy or determined, amiable, reserved or respectful, expressive, excitable, or dramatic. But really, this particular model, it's only looking at two things. It's looking at how assertive you are or how responsive you are. So it's not taking into account your belief system, any of your ethical, you know, feelings or anything like that. It's really just looking at, you know, how you respond to certain situations. I think it's more engaging if we just jump into the self-assessment. So in your packet, there's a sheet that looks like this. Okay. So don't give it too much thought. You just want to come right off the cuff. You know, it's not procrastinate. Just answer your gut feelings. Yeah. Anybody else need a pen? I'm gonna give you a couple because sometimes they don't work very well. Yeah, just the self-assessment. Yes. So once you get your number, you'll plot it on this second page to identify your driver, your primary and secondary. Or your, sorry, didn't want to, your social style.
Do we have the two together?
Yeah, so you'll, each section, one gives you,
Good, I have two different numbers.
so you'll have the two average scores on the road.
One's not better than.
Has everybody figured it out?
Yes.
Okay. So you'll have two numbers. One line talks about the responsiveness, the other line talks about the assertiveness, and then you'll kind of see which quadrant you find yourself. Yes, ma'am.
So 270, your first number is your second number. 273. And your second number is 253 on this side. This is that right here. Expressive. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Okay.
So once you have your dominant style, I want to divide the room up into 4 groups. So drivers, tell everybody, y'all pick your place first, and then everybody else will fall in line.
Drivers could be here.
Yeah. Wait, okay, that's so we'll kind of coordinate over here by this whiteboard.
What about for those of us who are like right in the middle of scene 2?
Pick one.
I really just want my I'm more towards the expressive, but I was reapplying what I'm
Yeah, so I want everybody to coordinate by a whiteboard. So each group, so we have drivers over here at this whiteboard, expressives back here at this whiteboard.
So how do you know which one for the highest score?
Yes, so you'll have a dominant one. Okay. Yeah, so let me see your, Amy, take your papers. Okay, so Amy will have over here. All right, let's go hang out. And then analytical, everybody analytical in the back. Back here, the biggest group back here. We are nice people. Yes. Amy will this way? Yes. Amy will here. Analytical in the back. In the back. talk about what is the most important thing for you as a driver or as an expressive or the other groups, important for you in a presentation. What works for you? How would a presenter best keep and hold your attention, and how would a presenter make you feel most comfortable? So what resonates with you in a message?
Yes, I am. And you know what's so funny?
I think you would find yourself in analytical for sure as a dominant. They're right there. Okay. Yeah. You too?
Yes.
It looks like all of the things
What better you
so there's so I can visualize and but then also
I like that.
The presentation needs to be valuable.
No, so when you're done, go ahead and go back to your table and jot in your worksheet, write down some of these for your group, and then we're going to share when everybody's done.
Because we focused on the warm as well.
Yeah, we Go ahead and spend the next minute and finish up, and then make your way back to your chair and write down some of the strategies for your particular group, and then we're going to share.
You know, it's funny because I'm an image and you know that lots of businesses have yeah. But then when you look at someone when they email, the first thing you see is the package, the presentation. Yeah, that's might be 93% of the image that you're actually forming. Then the 7% is the tone of voice, and that is divided by 3% of their image. So then varies that. Presenting themselves because they so that's why it's and you can't just sit on your laurels and be like, no, I have so much information, I just need to see it. It's not this point. But then it's good for me, our society now, because it's so visual, social media, if I like a picture, I take it back. So when you stand up, everybody's swiping right, you're swiping right. So then when you stand up to speak, you're already communicating with that in somebody's mind because that's the whole thing. Yes, constantly. Yes. I thought I was more an intuitive expressive. I'm not a heavy driver. Perfect. Yes. Perfect. And you want a cultural one, so that's good. You really need to be your diversity.
I think it's more coffee. That's my favorite thing.
I know where they go. That's on paper, and then you're like, this is what the category is.
I even have a microphone.
Yeah, see, like I started putting in the middle, and once I started putting in the middle, I'm like, this doesn't make sense.
Morgan.
Okay.
Yes, I do now. Okay, this isn't gonna work. I'm just gonna
Let's go ahead and go to the driver group. I'm going to pass the mic. Who's the delegate that's going to speak and kind of give us the rundown of what you want to And then remind me afterwards to share my observations from each.
Well, the first surprise is that you all delegated back to me. So we were, as you can see, we were the smallest group. I think there were 5 or 6 of us. Somebody came up to us who said he was, excuse my voice, who said he was a driver that left the group.
You drove him away.
So only the pure drivers. And just to talk about dynamic, there was a contest for who would be in charge of the board. So the first thing we haven't figured out is that we were talking about we giving the presentation, then all of a sudden somebody said, why don't we read this? And got the idea that it was about somebody giving the presentation to us. So once we got on the same page, it's pretty straightforward. Fundamentally, if we look at point 1, what's the most important thing that we're being presented to is getting a result. Call for action. You know, I'm not here to waste my time. I'm here to hear what you got to say. And definitely time is of the essence here. So somebody said in the group, if you're doing an icebreaker and it takes 15, 20 minutes, forget about it. I'm done. I'm no longer here. I got other things.
Note to self.
Like now.
Yeah.
In other words, straight to the point. Second thing is, how would a presenter best keep and hold your attention? Well, first of all, he's got to know who we are and what we're up to. Secondly, he or she needs to communicate effectively, net, not just a lot of flowery words. And again, valuing my time. If you're presenting to us, know that we could be doing something else, and it's got to be to the point. Now, how would a presenter make us feel more comfortable? Number 1, make sure that I'm learning something. Don't tell me something I already know, it's not worth it. Have concrete value in what you're presenting. Provide handouts. It's a sign of both respect and to show me that I have something I can deal with afterwards. Make sure you're building a connection to me that shows that you understand me. And finally, and I'm not 100% clear on this, but I think I understand what this point is have a uniting theme. In this audience, a uniting theme is we're all trying to do something that's good for the world. We're all changing the world. We're all doing that. And so be consistent with that.
Oh, that's nice. Nice closing. Make sure you're writing these notes down in your worksheet so you can identify these folks that you're talking to and maybe adjust your strategy a bit. Let's go back to expressive. Who wants to share?
Where's the girl? I'm not gonna talk.
I wrote this down. I did not say.
You're sounding very expressive.
I was not structured in how we wrote this down, so I apologize to my fellow expressive.
I think it's a message.
It's a lot of words on the board that we would like. So what's most important to us in this presentation would be engaging, inspiring, focused, relatable, relevant, easy to follow, and organized. And having a mix of kind of personal stories, kind of case studies with the data, as well as it being very visual. That would support us. Presenter to best keep our attention by being well-spoken, humorous, genuine. Back to kind of the first question is relatable as well, engaging, and using that positive vibes. Oh man, I got this over here. And then how would a presenter make you? It's all kind of connected to both feeling comfortable for us, because feelings is everything for us expressives. So that kind of being very genuine and outgoing would make us feel comfortable.
And you notice we have like complete thoughts and diagrams over here, and like random words on the board that just make you use your imagination. What does this word make you feel? Okay, analytical. Who's gonna present on this? There's like 5 words. So the they all had to share about the process and what they were going to do. Oh no! Don't be back to the
chair. So that you guys will be back and see. So one of the things that analyticals do is we present things in facts and figures for 2 things. One, for us to understand, but also to impart that information on our audience so that they understand what's going on. And so facts and figures are very important. The other thing is that we want to make this interactive and hands-on. Sort of like the folks in the first group, we're trying to make this so that what tools do we need, how can we improve, otherwise it's sort of a waste of time. And so for me, personally, I try to do that in this class, giving out handouts, giving out things that are going to help you guys do your job a lot better. And I did try to make it interactive as possible as I possibly can. The other thing, you also want to make it relatable. How does it relate to you? How does it relate to the organization? Because if you just keep facts and figures and you can't relate to them, they basically mean nothing. And so we're trying to, as analytical people, not only just the facts and figures, is how does it, when new information is bring, for you personally, but also in terms of the organization, how can the organization then move forward? Given that we have to collect this information, how can we use it? How can we use it to empower you? Right? So if we're a treasurer, Eduardo's a treasurer, right? So I say, you know, as Eduardo's case, he's a treasurer, but then as a treasurer, what does that mean for me in terms of growing the organization? What does it mean in terms of their needs? Right? For the Urban League, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Darwin. Yeah, so he makes, okay, so what am I going to learn? And so how am I going to learn? How can I apply this to make my job a lot easier, right, and make it better? So as analytical people, we think in multi-dimensional, not just the data, how does it impact, and what can we do to improve?
Team Amiable, the only team that wrote a list of what does not work for them.
I started our group with a group hug. If there is one thing that summarizes what's most important to us in the presentation, I believe it would be collaboration and inclusion. The theme kept recurring when we came up with phrases such as buy-in. Things that we would like from a presenter is an emotional connection. We would like to have a sense of trustworthiness. We would get that through body language and eye contact. Smiling, being expressive, being approachable. The presenter would like, we would like our presenter to demonstrate commitment. For us to work together, we'd like to be on the same song sheet. So one of our group members mentioned starting a presentation with why we're all here. And for her, in her workplace, it's sharing the mission and the vision of the organization. So reminding everyone why we're all here. Active listening, so if there's an opportunity for engagement, making sure people are being what they're saying is being understood. So going back and forth with, I heard you say this is what I understood. And again, collaboration and inclusion. What would not work for us is one of the ways that we phrase, I guess as an alternative for the presenter. If we only had facts only, no context, no storytelling, that would not be a great way to engage us in a presentation. Having a presentation that had no actionable steps or no purpose, so something, you're a ship with no direction, would not work for us. In the workplace, if we're working on projects, having someone dump tasks or a project on you with no context, aggression, being negative, or not presenting alternatives to maybe not favorable news would not work. Lacking vision, failing to offer alternatives, and because I said so, kind of speak to our dislikes for presentations and engagement in workplace. So thank you. Yes.
That was great. So do you guys think that can help you identify some of the folks that you're talking to and, understand a little bit more about which direction or which, not that we all want to be lumped into one, because again, we're very dynamic individuals, but, we do have our strengths and the things that we like and the things that resonate with us. And so understanding how we communicate with each other and not being so prideful or so stuck in our own ways to not be able to identify what may work for somebody else. Because the whole goal is you want to get your message across. We all want to be heard, we all want to be understood, and to find means and ways to be able to do that. And obviously what works, find out what works and use that, and the things that don't work, just chunk it aside. And yes, ma'am.
So I have a question. So how would you, because I understand.
Here, let me give you this.
Like, what would be ways to find out how others are so that we can do our presentations and communicate with them in the best possible way so that they, we're engaged and we get their attention and all that? Because if I know my peers, then fine, because I know them, but if I'm presenting to a group that I don't know, then what, how?
Well, I think, engaging in any way, I think when I have a conversation with somebody one-on-one, even in like the first 5 seconds, you can understand, are they introvert, extrovert, are they trying to get me to get to the point? You can pick up on some of these cues that help you understand maybe what would work better. And then switching your mindset on a dime, because you guys know all of your organizations through and through. So if I'm talking to somebody that is starting to ask about the numbers, then I'm like, okay,
maybe they're
this is, but then I need to give them these numbers and then tie it back to the mission of like, this is where we're at, this is where we need to be, and this is why we need to be there in a very linear way.
Right. And then if it's for a new group and you haven't had that one-on-one conversation, but you have to present, then maybe do a little bit of
everything. And that's why you'll see we do group activities, or you have handouts, and you try to be inclusive of all different learning styles and engagement styles. But again, I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea all the time.
Right.
And sometimes you just have to be okay with that too. Yes, ma'am.
I found out that the two most important questions to ask are, what are your concerns and what are you most interested in? And that gets me to get them to talk to me about what they're interested in. And that gives me leeway in finding out what makes them tick. Get them talking to you.
About their motivation.
Their motivation as to why they're talking to you.
Any other tactics? Yes, ma'am.
I think it's very important to do your homework too if you're presenting to a company, this group that everybody's there. That some of the best presentations I've been to presenter knew exactly what the company did, they knew names of the top executives, so they knew the culture. So I think, just do your homework is important.
Very good point.
I was saying,
Yes.
sure, yes. That was it.
I know we had scheduled, anything else anybody wants to share about this experience individually? Was anybody surprised by, where they landed here? You're like, no, I knew it. Yeah.
I'm just curious, hold on, I'm just curious where you landed.
Where I landed? Smack dab in the middle. I'm probably a little more of a driver. I think we can identify, every element that we are, but I'm most likely a driver.
In this activity, how do you identify your second? You said that everybody is primarily one with sort of a secondary leaning.
On the scale there, you can see the two categories that you land in. And so, no, you're on the.
Yeah.
I'll check it out with you afterwards and show you. It is a little confusing. But, and I didn't want to go into like reading all of this stuff about you, but there's a lot of supplemental information in here about each type, what that really means, the kind of examples, and when we're, again, extremes. So if you're a driver and you're, not to get all metaphysical here, but if you are in balance, then the positive things are going to come out, But if you are stressed or you're not doing the other things that you need to do in your life to create balance, then some negative things are going to come out here that are going to be unproductive. So I think those can also be triggers for us, or moments for us to go, ooh, wait, something might be off. And let me take a beat so that I can get back on track and be the best version of myself that I can be in each engagement. All right, and I know we had another break scheduled, but I want to go ahead and jump into the Pitch Fest and talk about that a little bit, because you're going to have a good 20 or so minutes to work on this. And so that you can, do all the other things you want to do during that time as well. Let's watch this.
Over the years, I've learned more about how to become a better presenter. I'm certainly way better now than I was when I started a few years ago. So what I thought I'd do is share some of the things that I've learned. The first thing that I've learned seems really obvious, but it's amazing how often we forget, which is to be yourself. It's really important that people can see the kind of person that you are. In other words, bring your own personality to bear. If you have a sense of humor, use it. If you like facts and figures, use them. Dress in a way that makes you feel comfortable. The second most important thing, and I've said this many times, which is to show up with an attitude to give. If you have something wonderful, if you have an idea, remember you're going to share it with a room of people who've never heard the idea. You're showing up to offer them a new perspective or an invention that they may not have thought of themselves. You're there to give, to educate, to enlighten, whatever your motivation, it has to be with this desire to give to the audience, not to take them. It makes a huge difference to how they'll receive your message. One of the most important things to do when you speak is own the room. Remember, you're the one on the stage, you're the one in the front of the room, you're the one with all the light and attention on you, and you should remember to use it to your advantage. Let me give you an example of one of the common mistakes. What's really amazing is how often people start speaking before they've even arrived on the stage. So here's what happens very often. Your name gets called out, you're brought up on stage, and you walk in and say, "Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really happy to be here," and you start talking before you even arrive. Now, what this does is it communicates that you're not confident being up there. So practice this. Practice getting all the way to the place you want to be and then speaking. Let me show you what I mean. Thank you very much for having me here today. Same thing, I'm just introducing myself. And yet I waited to get to where I was going before I started speaking. In fact, if you really want to take a risk, try being quiet for a minute at the beginning. Just take in the room, take a look. They will wait for you. It's sort of an amazing feeling. So this happens. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having me here today. Same thing. But that pause and that willingness to wait to get to where you're going, it communicates unbelievable confidence that you have. It happens very frequently that while you're presenting, you will lose your train of thought. It just happens. We're human. And the most important thing to do then is to go completely quiet. Never say don't go just go quiet. Find your train of thought. If you need to refer to your notes, that's fine. Look down, refer to your notes. Don't say, I've lost my place just looking for my notes here. In other words, the temptation is to explain to people why we're going quiet or why we've stopped talking. Don't worry. Remember, if you own the room, they'll wait for you. On those rare occasions that you do all these techniques and yet you still don't find your train of thought, the best technique there is to be yourself. I was giving a talk once to a fairly large audience. It was like 1,500 people. It was a very prestigious event that I was speaking at. And I was doing my thing, and in the middle, I lost my train of thought. Now, it happens, and so I went quiet, and I attempted to regain and find my train of thought, and I couldn't. I panicked a little bit, but not too bad, and I continued to stay quiet and try and find what I was thinking about, and I couldn't. And now I thought, okay, just start talking, tell a story. I've got a database of hundreds of stories in my mind, and yet on this particular moment, I could remember none. I wouldn't be surprised if I couldn't remember my own name if somebody asked me at this point. My mind was blank. I didn't know what to do, and now panic set in. And so I turned to the audience, and I told them what I was experiencing. I turned to them and said, have you ever had that experience where something goes horribly wrong, and your heart starts pounding, and you start to sweat? I said, have you ever had that experience? I said, I'm having that right now. And they all started to laugh. Now they were on my side. I said, I've completely lost my train of thought, and I'm completely embarrassed. So if anyone could just help me out, please, I'd love that. And somebody screamed out what I was saying last week. Thank you, that's what it was. Because now by being myself, by admitting not what I was going through, but admitting how I felt, I talked about the feelings I was having. People could relate and were now rooting for me and actually helped me. It actually became a funny experience. Here's a technique I learned recently, and it's really helpful. For many people, speaking in front of an audience can be the scariest thing they've ever done. People actually say, I hate public speaking. I'm so afraid of public speaking. But one of the techniques that I would offer is to reinterpret that fear as excitement. So if you're standing backstage and you're about to go out and you start to get nervous and you peek through the curtain, you see hundreds of people and you've never done this before and you don't know what to do and you start panicking, say to yourself, this is exciting. And you'll be amazed simply how reinterpreting the data that your mind is receiving completely changes your state of mind. Much like taking your time to get started, it's really important that you take your time when you're actually speaking. Strangely enough, there's actually no such thing as too slowly when you're giving a talk. Too fast, that comes easy, and we're all susceptible to it. Nerves, or just watching clocks, or whatever it is, makes us race. Or we think we have to get all the content in as quickly as we can, and we start speaking fast and faster. And as you can tell right now, the faster I go, you're actually less interested in everything I have to say. And yet, if I speak really slowly, sort of uncomfortably slowly, where in my mind I'm thinking, this has to be too slowly. And yet for some reason, it's way more interesting to hang on every single word instead of racing through your content. Related to the pace in which you speak, you have other tools at your disposal. The volume of your voice, the emphasis of words, the length of your pauses, all can be used for dramatic effect. One thing which people don't realize about me, which surprises people, is I'm actually an introvert. And I'm actually uncomfortable with large groups of people. And it's actually helped me be a better public speaker. Because I don't like speaking to groups, but I can speak to individuals. Looking at individuals and talking to one individual at a time, giving them an entire thought or an entire sentence, hugely powerful for creating a connection with your audience, no matter the size of the audience. Remember, a speech isn't just the giving of the speech. It's the manner in which you give the speech. It's the way you show up on the stage. It's the pacing of the speech. It's also how you end the speech. It's how you accept the applause from the audience. Applause is like a gift. They don't have to give it to you. And if they didn't really like you, they'll give you some sort of polite applause and it'll be over immediately. But if they really appreciated what you said to them, maybe they'll give you a standing ovation. Or maybe they just will keep applauding and applauding and applauding and applauding, and it goes on and on. These are all the expressions of gratitude, and they're gifts. So just as if someone were to give you a gift, a physical gift in a box, it would be rude to just push it back. It would be rude to say, I don't need a gift. So too is it really important to accept the applause with gratitude. So when they applaud you, you stand on the stage, you look at them one at a time, just as you did while you were speaking, and you say, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You look at each one in the eye and you say, thank you. And once you've decided you've said thank you enough, and you've decided to walk off the stage, you walk off the stage. Just as you came on with confidence and then stood and waited to start, when you've decided that you said thank you and you can now leave the stage, you walk off the stage. Don't stop, don't come back, don't do lots of these on your way out. You said your thank yous and now walk out with the same confidence that you walked on. And that's when your presentation is concluded. Sometimes when you give a talk or give a presentation, you'll be required to answer questions at the end. The most important thing to remember is you don't have to know all the answers. If you know the answers, tell them what you think. And if you don't know the answer, then tell them you don't know. In other words, it actually demonstrates more confidence when you say you don't know something than pretending. Because when you pretend, not only does everybody know that you don't know the answer, but you look like you're pretending, and you actually destroy the confidence they had in you. It's sort of remarkable how the Q&A can make and break you. There's only two things you should really stay clear of. Don't read your stuff. Know your stuff. Notes are to help keep you on track if you need that, but you should really know your stuff instead of just reading it. That's number one. Number two, if you're going to use PowerPoint slides, don't put all the content on the PowerPoint slides. The PowerPoints are like chapter sections. They're designed to guide or add a little depth or add some imagery to the things you're saying. It's still about you. It's not about the slides. It's about the ideas that you hold. So use all of these things, but use them sparingly.
Man, to be an instructor now. Right. So good pointers, I think. You know, I think really what I took away from that mostly is just to be authentic. You know, we all don't know everything about everything, but then just to be yourself, and I think that resonates and can connect with your audience. So the Pitch Fest, as I mentioned at the beginning of class, we're going to, you're going to have time to work on it in every other session, and you can also be thinking about it too, but it's really a way for you guys to hone in on your pitch. You know, like when it's almost like an elevator speech. You know, if you're stuck in an elevator with somebody for 5 minutes, what do you want to convey about yourself, your organization, and what you need from them? And so there's a handout called Perfecting Your Pitch. And the copier, I don't know if everybody's like this, there's some extra sheets in there, so forgive that. But just take I know we're running a little close to time right now for our speaker. So just kind of peruse this for now, and we'll have some time at the end of class to give you to start kind of jotting down your ideas. But today it's just about the big ideas. You know, if you just want to have kind of one little big word section in each one of these to start thinking about, to trigger, to build this up, then just kind of jot that down right now. And then we want to go ahead and make sure we have enough time for our speaker and for you guys to ask questions or anything that you have there. Does this make sense? So that we're going to, at the last session before your graduation, everybody's going to have an opportunity to come up here and give us their pitch. And then in between there, we'll have times to practice those so that you can get constructive feedback and you can really fine-tune this in a way that makes you feel confident and comfortable. question? No? In each class, if you guys, I don't know if you're just keeping everything in your folders and things, and so just make sure, I would just bring this to class every time so that when we have a few minutes that you can, you know, start working on it a little bit more and take the things that we're talking about and even write down notes on here so that it can help guide you.
So I would like to welcome week 2 guest speaker, Dawn C.A. from SOS Children's Villages, Florida. She's going to come up here and do a great presentation for you all on creating strong nonprofit partnerships. So if we can, let's give a big Fundraising Academy welcome to Dawn.
Welcome, so thank you.
No pressure.
After I film the party, chance to go in the opposite direction a lot. Hey, how are you?
All right, well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you to everyone for having this opportunity for me to be here this morning to speak to you. I'm Dawn, and I'm the Vice President of Development at SOS Children's Villages. I've been there for about 4 years, and prior to that, I was the Area Executive Director for the American Diabetes Association, and before that, I worked for the Heart Association. So I have a long and interesting nonprofit career, particularly here in South Florida, and I have to tell you that fundraising is my first passion. It's my greatest love, and I'm, delighted to be able to share a little bit of what I know over the years. So if we can go, I don't know, Chad, or Chase, who's working the slides?
Yeah, I can click for you. If that makes it easier.
Okay.
I don't know how you'd like to do it.
Yeah, we can go about.
And everyone, just to go, you all have a worksheet for this exact presentation in your packet. It's called Building Strong Nonprofit Relationships.
All right. While it might be intuitive, I want to be able to just go over what are companies looking for when they partner with a nonprofit partner. I mean, a lot of times as development people, we think that we prepare our sponsorship decks, we know what our events are, and then we roll it out and say, here is what it is that we have to offer. One of the biggest things that I see is opportunities for employees within a company to engage in the mission of your organization. I would say that is the #1 thing that they're looking for. They are looking to be able to not so much anymore seeking logo placement and the ROI that we as fundraising professionals share. That's really not the ROI a lot of times that most organizations are looking for. It's not the same as advertising, and there is a huge shift to cause marketing being viewed as a philanthropic partner within the community that we live and work. So that would be the #1 thing that I would say that they're looking for. The other thing that they're looking for is some kind of creativity to be able to tailor your sponsorship proposals to meet what their organizations or their employee needs are. So those are the 2 primary things that they look for. And then what are some of the things, you know, that we hear? Like, how are we going to meet those needs? If I can just have a show of hands, how many people have said, you know, how many of you have galas? Okay. How many of you have heard that I'm having a difficult time in filling a table at a gala? Yeah? Okay. Can anyone share, what are you doing about it? I mean, don't be shy. All right, go ahead. What's your name?
We don't do galas anymore.
Okay.
That was the difficult decision.
Right. So because of that. So what we hear.
Just in case any participants are speaking.
All right.
Can speak louder.
Is this on here?
Let me see.
All right.
Oh, yeah, that's
okay, good. Was everyone able to hear me in the back? Okay. So, all right, so some of us are no longer doing galas. Well, what we're doing is we're listening. You can't fill a table of 10, and if they do, they're not filling it with the right people. And the right people are the individuals who are going to drive your silent and live auction and your appeals with, you know, extra money. That's what the whole purpose. It's a fundraising event. That's why we need to have them there. So what we're doing is we're creating niche sponsorships. And what the niche sponsorships are doing is that they're offering less seats, maybe 2, maybe 4, and that's something that we can negotiate with the individual organization. And it's giving them higher levels of visibility without the full table, and it's just a matter of becoming creative with that. The other thing is that we're hearing that everyone is inundated with our 5K events. How many of you do a run-walk event? Okay. Well, that's not too many, so I can't wait to hear what you're doing, Kareem, too, a 5K? So did everyone raise their hand on the 5K, or you just? Okay, thank you. So the thing is that there are at least 3 a weekend. So how do we stand out at a 5K? How do we make that how do we make that leap from standing out and setting ourselves apart? It's very difficult. But what you do with that is that you make sure that the teams that you are recruiting, the organizations that you are reaching out to, that there is a deep and close connection to your cause. So when I worked with the American Diabetes Association, there was a huge difference between who we have coming to our walk at SOS, which is a foster care community, and the healthcare organizations. And it took me a minute because I really enjoyed the sponsorships from all of the hospital systems, the pharma companies, and that kind of thing, but those went away. So it's a matter of really identifying, okay, who will support me and going after them. Another one is when you talk about you want to be able to strategically engage your corporate volunteers. And when I say strategic, everything that we do as fundraising professionals definitely needs to be strategic. And when I say that, we get calls, and I don't know how many of you get calls from people wanting to come and do volunteer projects, make donations, and do things at your organization. Wow. How many of you have a campus where people can actually come, you're supporting the people who you support and you drive your mission? Okay. Okay, now, how many of you are strategically selecting which volunteers do your projects? Okay. All right, well, that's good. For those of you who are not, I'm going to tell you what's important. Everyone wants to come out and do good and bring their groups and feel good. But for us, we need to take a look and we need to say, okay, is this corporate group going to be able to become a sponsor? Are they going to be able to turn it, to do that? What other value addedness can we use? Will they be able to help us with some of our programs that we're doing? And if the answer is no, you need to look for those who will. And the reason for that is that volunteerism is the petri dish for sponsorship. They come through the door, and that is where you first engage someone with your mission. And if you're able to do that effectively, you can have them have an excellent volunteer experience, and then come through, and then you start talking to them about all of the other opportunities because they have now become engaged. Another one is the involvement for an organization on your board. I mean, this is Development 101, but I cannot tell you how many times that the importance of working very closely with the executive director and the development department. As the development professionals, we are in the field, we actually know, we're interacting, seeing, talking to the organizations. When you go and you're talking to an organization, it shouldn't only be about what sponsorship, what volunteer opportunities, how you can engage. But I would also ask them, are there board opportunities? Can our organization, or do you have anyone, and this is important, without offending necessarily the person that you're talking to, in a senior leadership capacity with the ability to make decisions on funding? That is very, very important. Is that person available, or can they identify someone to be represented on your board? That's critical, because once you have that, you have buy-in from the organization, you have board give or get maximums and minimums, and then you're on your way. So those are some of the primary things that I would say we want to begin with. Now, what I wanted to do is show you, and I have this. Let me see. Is our sponsorship deck. Yeah, I want to make sure it's the link is here so we can click through on Flipbook. All right, so what I did, I'm just going to click it because I don't want to stand here talking and then it doesn't click to open. Hold on. All right. Okay, great. So the sponsorship deck is, we all do them, but how much thought are you looking or putting into each sponsorship deck that you create every year? What we've done is there are three things. One, you want to have your sponsorship deck available and ready to be launched probably by the end of October for the upcoming year. The reason for this is that organizations are looking at their budgets, they're preparing their budgets at this time, and by the time, if you wait until January, February, March of the following year, unfortunately you have missed out because funds have been allocated to another organization and it won't be you. So, go ahead and get your sponsorship decks together. So really, I mean, you can't see this, but I will send a link to everyone with our deck so that you can have an idea. It's very comprehensive. I also have it on my LinkedIn profile if you want to go in and take a look at it. We send this out to all of our sponsors. We give it to our board members, ask them to distribute it to everybody, with a pulse who's connected to our organization. All right, so one of the things is when we look at sponsorships and we talk about how about creating and what can you do that are new? How many of you have been to the BB&T Center and been in awe of how many logos they have all over the place? I mean, that's like goals for me right there. It's like how do they manage to do that? So I am now wanting to see at SOS, how can we get logos? We have a whole campus there, and they have logos on every pillar, column, wherever you go within that facility. So one of the things that we did this year is we created an Adopt a Home project or sponsorship. And we have 13 homes in the village where the children live with a house parent. And we get all of these people. Remember I said how many people call up and say, we want to do a volunteer project. Well, we're like, okay, we have it for you. For $10,000 at SOS, you can volunteer all year long. You can volunteer, and not only do you volunteer, you have the opportunity at the end of the year, which we have an event called Light Up the Village, which when I came 3.5 years ago, we had volunteers just coming out to do that. Well, I'm like, you know what, this should be a sponsorship. You're sponsoring a home. We added a $2,500 sponsorship opportunity to that and included that in the Adopt a Home. So with Adopt a Home, they can do 3 facility projects per year, which would be landscaping, painting, power washing, you know, anything like that. Or if they would like, we can also incorporate a project with the children. And also, they have an opportunity once a month with the home that they've adopted to be able to go in and do a project with the children. It could be cooking, take them out to a movie, skating, a sporting event, or any of those things. So they own that home for 1 year, and we also give signage, a temporary signage, and that kind of is the level of exposure that we have for that. So that is one thing that we're doing. If anyone has any questions, we're going to have questions on the end. You know, please stop and ask as, you know, we go along. Because I'm going to ask you all for some ideas in a little bit too. All right, so the other one is outside the box. So we're thinking, we talked about over here, we heard you stopped doing galas, everyone's inundated with the 5Ks. So we're like, okay, what else can we do? What else can someone sponsor? We have an Employee of the Month sponsor. If someone wants to, you know, sponsor your Employee of the Month. We have someone who can sponsor your annual report, which you will pay for the printing, and you will have your logo placed on that annual report. And you also have the opportunity on the back of that to make a statement about your organization, is another opportunity. And we put that at $5,000. Now, depending on your organization and what your budget is, you know, you're free to create the levels that you feel that would work. We also have a graduation. Our children graduate, and I know that you all, Kareem, have a graduation as well. We have a graduation sponsor, and that's an opportunity for them to not only sponsor the event, but the volunteers can come out and help with the graduation. Did you have a question back there or no? Oh, okay. All right. You know, another is that we have the opportunity for people, because we have a campus, we have walls, and some of them really do need painting. So we're giving sponsors an opportunity to be a village mural sponsor. So you can come in and you can paint a mural, your employees can come and do it, and you can put your logo on there as well. So the other one, when we go through, when we talk about the Home and Hope Gala, which is our annual gala, we talked a little bit about what those could look like and some of the niche sponsors for that event. We talked about making, offering less tables and giving different kinds of exposure. One of them that we did, we had Aetna last year serve as the grand entry sponsor, and you can sponsor just about every step of your gala. Like if you think about all of the elements that compose that, you can add a sponsorship and include something to that. Our 5K event, again, we still struggle, like many of you do, in terms of trying to set us apart. We've been able to grow the event over the past 4 years, but you know, it's constantly trying to identify new ways. And I will tell you one experience that I had with the American Diabetes Association. It was very hard to get sponsors without any programmatic content. So what we did is we added a health vest to our event, which was basically a health fair where we could have the organizations, sponsoring organizations come out and do, you know, BMI, blood pressure, and those types of screenings. We also put together a panel within that event of experts where there was a dietitian, a cardiologist, a nutritionist, and another physician to be able to go through and speak to the people. So, you know, think about what your event looks like, and if there is an opportunity to add an expert panel, that will create value addedness to your event, and it'll be able to help you increase your sponsorship. And then you can do some fun things. What we will look to do is probably incorporate like a mud run component in the upcoming years. I mean, people are looking for, you know, things that are testing your stamina and ability. You know, they're rappelling from buildings, they're running through mud, they're doing Tough Mudder. And so as much creativity that you can do, maybe theme it around a time of year. They have paint runs and things like that. So just think about how creative you can get with that. Another new event that we're adding is Taste of the Village. There is a trend now for those who are moving from galas. Have any of you doing a food event? Okay, well that's good. I would love to hear, you know, a little bit about that. Do you find them to be, you know, successful? Are they in place of a gala, or are they alongside your gala?
For us, very successful. It's, you know, if you get a host. We do one, our big one coming up February 6th, Puerto in Miami. Okay. And if you find a big host, in this case it's hosted by George and Darlene Perez, it sells.
Okay. Okay. Well, good. We're going to do an exercise at the end, and I would, you know, love to be able to hear a little bit about that because each group will be reporting out. Okay. This is before my total 5?
Yeah, I just made that opinion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
all right. So listen, I have to keep it moving. Yeah.
You want to keep it moving?
No. Ask a quick question, but he gave me the.
It wasn't a question. We did a food event this year for attracting the major donors to our organization, and we brought in a specialty chef.
Okay.
In the evening, and it was at a donor's home, and it seemed to attract quite.
All right. All right, so we talked about Light Up the Village, and we're getting ready to move into our event, into our exercise. And then we also, don't forget, if you have grant opportunities, a lot of times when we think about sponsorship, we're leaving the program funding in a different area. You know, include all of that, because what we are finding is that just about every organization, particularly large corporations, not only have community-based sponsorship dollars, but they do have money for programmatic funding. And what you want to do is be able to get both. And you know, ask. I mean, sometimes you don't even realize, you know, what they have.
Who do you go to for in the corporation? Is there a specific type of person?
Well, it depends. The larger ones have someone who is within community affairs, is the first place that you start. The marketing department, community affairs, and some organizations you go to HR. Those are the 3 areas. But the question always is, who is responsible for corporate partnerships in the community? I always say that, especially if it's on a cold call, because when you start talking about sponsorship, then they don't really send you as far. But if you say you're looking for corporate partnership and volunteerism, it's a little bit softer. All right, if we can get into groups of, and I don't know, Chase, what would you say?
We could maybe just do the rows, or just.
All right, if everyone can get together in their rows, we can, we have a short exercise, and you have your worksheets. If you can take a look at the worksheet.
It may be better if you want, instead of doing rows, because then we're kind of long, if some people just want to turn their chairs, or if you have a partner from your organization, you can do that. Don't worry too much about the formality of how big your group is, or who's in the location. Yeah.
All right, so we have 5 minutes. So So we have 5 minutes. This last sheet right here on the back of our sponsorship deck is the commitment form. I like for people to sign that and return it within 30 days. And you have that, and then we'd like to get payment within 30 days of the commitment.
Can you show us the sheet because we can't find it?
We don't have it. It's that sheet right there.
Creating strong nonprofit partnerships.
Yeah, it says creating strong nonprofit partnerships at the top.
Alright.
Well, the thing is that there's going to be one person, and we only have like 5 minutes to do this. So just identify within your group one person who will report out on this. So you'll just talk about basically what are your events, what do you think you can do with them to make them a little bit more creative, or what have you done?
You are the philanthropic person.
Yes,
guys have so many collaborative ideas. So, all right, who wants to go first? Hello? Oh, okay. No, please.
Here, do you want me to hand the mic?
Yes.
I'll grab the mic first.
All right, so we are going to Maria. All right, so Maria's going to go first and answer some of the questions. So what we're going to share is talk about some of your common events and what are you doing that's creative, and then 3 ways that you can engage your employer, volunteer groups in your mission. I might make this a little bit shorter just due to time, but we're going to start with Maria here.
Talk about like me being singled out today. The first let me know, guys, if you can hear me well. Our organization is Happy. It's for young adults with autism. And the 3 events that we have this year, or I know Larry, but we're gonna keep it in 3. That's what the teacher said. The first one that we're having, it's in April, the month of autism. And because we're aiming to engage more young adults with autism within our organization, we're actually organizing a video game contest, per request of my son. And all of us know that it's hard for them to engage with other people in a social setting that they don't like, but they're going to be able to come and play with professional gamers. I contacted one of my friends that managed a lot of them. And not only are we going to have those gaming trucks, but we're going to do it at the heart of our community where other young adults are going to be able to participate. We have a club at Cypress Bay High School that has 120 kids. And they're also committed to help us make this event a success, of course, when you talk about video games. So that was one of the creative ideas that we had this year. The second event, we're going to have it in October, which is we don't call it a gala, but what we do is we have done it 2 times. This is a young organization. This is our 3rd year. So we last year did it in one of our donors' house. She has a beautiful mansion in Windmill Ranches, so she opened her home, and it was like a hosting party, DJ, great food, great time to connect kind of event, and it was very successful, so we're going to repeat that this year. And the third one is we launched a new event because we've been fundraising for 2 of our programs. The first one is Spectrum Tech, which is software and technology testing that center is up and running and is open. The second one is in Broward College. We opened a program called Avionics where they're able to get a certification. But me being a mom of a creative, my son is very creative. This year we launched what's called Artism Expo, which is in the arts. And for last year in December. So for next December, our aim is to take it to the next level and bring their art, which they did. They sang, they performed piano, they exposed their paintings. So this was such a hit when the community was able to see what they're able to do that I wanted to bring it to Art Basel. So I have a Connect in Art Basel, and we're going to open a space for them to showcase their art. And we already have young adults with autism contacting me from England, from Canada, willing to come and share what they're able to do. Nice. So this is it.
All right, well, thank you. Okay, our time is severely limited, so what I'd like to do, that was great, thank you. Love that. So what I'd like to do is for the next person to share your one and very creative. No, that was good. So do I have a volunteer? Okay. And then the next person, be thinking about it. Who's going to be next?
Creative new thing or creative when you currently engage?
I would say whatever you think you're doing that's creative that you think would you want to share with the group.
Well, I'll share our biggest thing that we do to engage corporate sponsorships and volunteer groups with Big Brothers Big Sisters, and we have a program called School to Work, and we transport high school students, mostly juniors and seniors, to a corporate partner work place once a month throughout the school year for breakfast, about an hour of workshop development, or workshop for life skills development, career readiness, college readiness. Then there's one-to-one job shadowing and mentoring, and then they have, have lunch, and then are transported back to school in time to make the buses home. And that counts as a school field trip, so they get the one-to-one mentoring and the college and career readiness that is so essential for high school graduation and college.
All right, thank you. Is there a sponsorship attached to that, or?
We always ask for partners to cover the cost of creating those match